What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and another video, and today's video is going to be quite a quick one, and it's actually about something I mentioned that I was going to do quite a while ago, and it's about this little camera right here. It's quite basic, but as you may have heard me talk about in a previous video, it's just a fun little camera to use. It's kind of cute looking, isn't it? So anyway, I'm just going to get right into this one, and so you don't have to look at my face the entire video, I'm going to overlay some clips that I think I have and also some photos got with this little camera while I talk a little bit about it. So let's touch on the build quality of this little thing first of all, and I mean it is £50, or it might be even a little bit lower now because there's a second version that came out, but you're not going to buy this camera for excellent build quality. It's completely plastic and it is very light, which is nice for carrying around, but build quality wise there isn't really much else to say other than it's completely plastic and very light. So this is a half frame film camera which takes regular 35mm film, and if you don't know what half frame is, then it just means that you get two photos within the size of one regular 35mm photo. So let's just say for example you have a regular roll of 35mm Portra 400 with 36 photos on it. If you put that same roll in this half frame camera, you will get twice as many photos, so approximately 72 photos instead of 36. Now obviously getting twice as many photos is great, but there is a little bit of a downside with that, and that is that the negatives are half the size. So image quality is not quite as good, and the amount of grain in the images is obviously more noticeable. Now don't get me wrong, this little camera can take some decently sharp images if the light is good or if you're using the flash, but obviously don't expect pin sharp images every time. So the lens on this little camera, as I mentioned earlier, this camera is completely plastic, and that does include the lens, which is a 22mm fixed aperture of f9.5. I mean, it's nothing special and those numbers don't really sound too appealing, but as you'll see in a minute, it is capable of getting some pretty decent images for what it is. When it comes to the features on this little Kodak Ektar H35, there isn't much, and I really mean that, there isn't much at all. There is a flash on the top here which you can see, and you can adjust that right on the front of the lens here. There's a little knob right here which you can turn, and that either turns the flash on or off, and you know the flash is on by the little light on the back here which lights up when it's turned on. It does take a few seconds to reload after each photo, so it kind of builds back up, and then you can take another photo and you need to give it a few seconds before you can snap another one, otherwise the flash just won't go off. And obviously there's a shutter button right on the top here, and that is pretty much about it. The viewfinder in this little camera actually isn't bad, and it's quite strange to get used to because when I'm looking through it this way, there's actually like a little grid in the viewfinder where it's marked out for a vertical shot. So when you're holding the camera like this horizontally, you can see that it's actually framing a vertical shot because it's half frame. So to get like a landscape shot, you actually have to turn the camera this way, which is quite odd because it's kind of the opposite of what you would normally do with any other camera really. But it's quite clear, quite bright, and I mean it does the trick for what you need this camera to do. But yeah, feature wise, very limited, and besides loading the film, there isn't really any other features besides the flash, which I think is a good thing too. I don't think it needs any more, and I chose this one particularly because it doesn't have those features, so there's nothing to think about, you just take the photos. As I mentioned, it is a fixed aperture camera, so f9.5. It's also a fixed shutter of, I believe it's 1/100th or 1/125th of a second, which is quite limiting, and it means that your choice of film is very important, because if you choose a film that's really high ISO or really low, you might end up with really overexposed or really underexposed photos. And with most of the photos that you're seeing, if not maybe actually all of them, I think I used Kodak Gold 200, which I found to work pretty well when you're inside and you use the flash, which you will need to when you're inside. it works pretty well if you're relatively close, like taking a photo from someone across the table or taking a portrait of a group of friends or something. As long as you're reasonably close to them, the flash does a good job, and the ISO 200 film is bright enough and looks pretty good. When you're outside, sometimes it can overexpose a little bit, but as you see with most of the photos that I'm sharing, it's not bad. I mean, this is far from a camera you're going to be using for landscape photography. I don't really use it too much for anything other than taking photos of people, which I think is kind of what it's made for. You probably could get away with ISO 400 films, and they might work nicely indoors as well, but when you're outside on a bright day, ISO 400 would probably overexpose most scenarios, I would say, just because you can't adjust aperture or anything. So I would recommend probably ISO 200 to 400 films, but probably ideally 200 is perfect for most cases, I would say, with this little camera. The camera takes simple AAA batteries, which are really easy to find, which is nice. I actually put one battery in this when I got it. I think that was like last summer, and I used maybe 2 or 3 rolls of film through it over that period, and I only put a new battery in it a few weeks ago. So it wasn't used too much, but it also lasted quite a while with the camera just sitting there. So yeah, it's pretty easy on batteries, and they're easy to find, which is obviously nice. One thing to remember though, don't leave the flash on. It's really easy to do. I've done it a few times, but not for too long. When you turn the flash on to take a photo and think, oh, that's great, I'll sit the camera on the table. If the little red light's on, that means that it's using battery. So make sure to turn it off after you take the photo. Otherwise, you might fly through batteries a lot quicker. You'll notice the battery is running out, by the way, because when you turn the flash on, the little red light on the back might take a little longer to get bright. So yeah, once it starts doing that, you know the battery is running low. And I also think in some of the photos that I've looked at, I think when the battery's running low and it takes a bit longer for that to light up, I think the flash might be a bit dimmer too, which makes sense because there does seem to be a few more underexposed photos indoors on the last roll compared to the first one. I think. I'm not 100% sure there, but I think so. So yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to a quick sort of review of this little camera. But I think the one thing that makes this little camera great is the fact that I want to take photos with it, which might sound a little bit stupid because kind of all cameras do that. But like I said earlier, I don't really take too many landscape photos or anything. The photos I take are mainly of people. So that could be friends if we go out for drinks or something, family around Christmas, or any holiday really, anytime we get together. And also when me and Christina go on trips or something, I've kind of got into the habit of throwing this camera in the bag or keeping it in my pocket when we go out so I can just snap a photo. I'm not a massive fan of really taking photos with the phone. I just never have been, and I find it hard to get into the habit of wanting to take the phone out and take a photo. Whereas with this little camera, I do. I make sure that I capture a memory. It might not turn out the greatest, but it's fun to use and it's easy. And I'm also not afraid to lose it, which is a big part of it. I'm not going to take my Nikon FE out, for example, or my Yashica, because I'd be afraid of something breaking or losing them. Whereas with this little camera, it's cheap, I can easily replace it, and the worst thing I'm going to lose is the actual photos on it, which I have done before and it was quite annoying. But yeah, it's just such a simple camera. You can hand it to someone if you're out and they can take a photo with it because they literally just have to press the shutter button. So everybody kind of wants to get involved, take a photo, which means you get a lot more photos and therefore you have a lot more memories. So it's just a fun, cool little camera. And I think that's the main appeal of it, is that it makes me want to take photos and it's easy. I didn't want anything complicated with any other features because it's just a barrier between taking an actual photo. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Just a quick little video about this camera. I said I would do this one for a while and I wanted to take a few more photos on it, just enjoy it a bit more before I give my final thoughts. But a fun, very cheap little camera. I think most photographers should have a camera like this, something where they don't have to think too much about it and they can just do what they enjoy doing, which is taking photos. So yeah, a great little camera, definitely worth the £50 or whatever it was I paid for it. And yeah, I would definitely recommend that everybody gets one or something similar to this to have in their pocket when they're just out and around. Anyway, hopefully this one was helpful in some way or other. Hopefully you like some of the photos. It's not my greatest work, but that's not what it's about. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing if you want to see more. And as we always say, take it easy. Don't be a stranger.